Welcome to Garage Racer. As I previously promised, we're committed to bringing you more frequent videos. We've decided to do a review of the engines for E46. It's a viral BMW model here. Let's start with the M42 engine. Here we have the E46 gray sedan. That's a facelift model, 318, and we have M42 as an engine here. Anyway, the engine I wouldn't recommend on an E46 body is the N42. N42 and N46. M42 and M46. I'll tell you why. After 2001, the facelift E46 had these engines. This is a gasoline 4-cylinder engine. The era of modern BMW engines began with the M42 engines. Unfortunately, facelift E46 didn't fare well. These engines are not very reliable and they use the Valvetronic system. They can be quite temperamental and delicate, causing issues without necessarily signaling errors. In fact, something might glitch even without any apparent errors. The advantage of the M42 over its predecessor, the M43, is that there is less fuel consumption, like in theory, because of the Valvetronic. But that's where it ends. Because it breaks down more, often because it's more capricious. All its advantages in terms of fuel consumption simply disappear with the very first breakdown, or with the first confusion when the service station struggles to solve the problem, tries various options, but it doesn't help. In other words, simply replacing the spark plugs here is not a panacea at all. It seems that there's something wrong with the Valvetronic system, most likely related to the motor or the mechanism. Besides the fact that this engine is part of the hot engine series, its valve stem seals tend to dry out very quickly. They dry up, harden, and allow oil to pass through them. It is recommended to replace the valve stem seals every 80, 100, or 150,000 kilometers of mileage. Otherwise, oil consumption increases. Piston rings can become coked, although this issue can affect all engines. Overall, apart from these problems, there's also the Valvetronic and double VANOS systems that can be quite challenging. VANOS may break, timing chains can stretch, and chain tensioners and plastic components can fail. The Valvetronic motor may malfunction without triggering any error codes. There is an intermediate shaft in the Valvetronic system, as well as intermediate rocker arms. Wear and tear can occur there too, which means replacing the entire Valvetronic system. A new one costs a fortune. A used one must be taken from a used engine. So the solution to the problem seems to be not cheap actually. There is also a new type of coil, which are currently used on Nicholas version engines. They are often out of order compared to the previous type of coils. The engine looks economical at first glance because it has few cylinders, fewer issues, spark plugs, coils and components making repair seem inexpensive. But in reality, because it's packed with all the technology BMW at that time, that's why it's gotten more complicated and very demanding and unreliable. So in the end, this will result in higher repair costs for you. The budget will be larger, it will offset the relatively low fuel expenses. More money will go toward repairs than the difference in fuel economy between the Nicholas 42 engine compared to the 6-cylinder engines like the M54, M52TU, or M43. Even its predecessor M43 was used on pre-facelift models. Oh, and by the way, VANOS valves can break down, as well as camshaft sensors. Valves and sensors can be swapped and looked at to see if the error has or has not crossed over to the another VANOS. Let's discuss the predecessor. In this case, we have a situation where the owner, a video operator, has an E46 pre-facelift model with the M43 engine. This engine lacks VANOS, Valvetronic, and runs on natural gas. Is it single camshaft? Bummer. Alright, single shaft engine M43, here we go. M43 engine, the predecessor to the Nicholas 42, with a displacement of 1.8 liters. It's a straightforward single camshaft engine without VANOS or Valvetronic. Well, there are high voltage wires, which could be a downside. Replacing the entire coil with the wires might be expensive. But otherwise, it's as simple as the old M50, without VANOS. As for the engine internals, what problems could there be? None. No VANOS, no Valvetronic, just a single camshaft motor. Perhaps the timing chain should be changed every 200,000 to 250,000 kilometers. And yet you don't have necessary to change it. What else is there? Externally, the thermostat flange often leaks. And at the back, the flange enters the cylinder head gasket, causing coolant leaks. Overall, the engine is reliable, but the main downside is that it doesn't have much power. Well, that's crucial for me. And for those who are considering buying a simple, inexpensive engine, it might suffice. In short, it's a matter of personal preference, but the engine is reliable. So, the M43 engine is 3 times cheaper to maintain and breaks down less often than N42, making it a recommended choice. But it's used only in pre-facelift models. In summary, if you take care of all the peripheral details, nuances, and minor issues, which are cost-effective, you can expect reliable performance without any surprises related to engine internals, VANOS, electronics, or other modern systems. That concludes our discussion about the 4-cylinder E46 engines. Let's now move on to the 6-cylinder engines. Here's an example of my E46 X328. It has M52TU, M52B28, 2.8 liter M52TU pre-facelift. In short, the M52TU B28 is the predecessor of the M54 B30. So the facelift models already have a 3 liter M54 B30, and the pre-facelift models have 2.8 liter M52TU engine. Aluminum block, cylinder sleeves, nothing glitches or breaks. The VANOS units, being the earliest designs, are slightly unreliable. Repair kits are available for them, valve timing may need adjustment, but chain replacement is usually unnecessary and rarely required. You don't need to change the timing chain at 300,000 kilometers. You can adjust the timing phases. As for potential issues, the semi-electronic, semi-mechanical throttle valve may glitch and require replacement. Additionally, the camshaft position sensor might experience faults, as well as VANOS valves sometimes. Nothing unusual with spark plugs, coils almost never break. Not much tends to break down actually. The oil filter housing may leak, but it's just a gasket that needs replacement over time. The M52TU B28 engine is a great choice. Unfortunately, it wasn't used in the facelift models. Instead, the facelift versions featured 2.5 liter and 3 liter engines. Recommended for purchase? Great stuff. Recommended for purchase? Great stuff. Didn't make it to the box. 100 meters left. Opel Garage Racer. He was driving there and then hit the gas. And something fell out, down. I see an engine block. Whatever, something's dripping. Fuck. That ain't never happened before. Opel Garage Racer. Fuck. Connecting rod. This is connecting rod. This is a connecting rod. Op. Part of the block, oil sump, connecting rod, M20B20. Part of an oil pump. So I talked about the M52TU, which isn't installed here. Here we got the absolute best engine, the M50. It was being produced from 1990 to 1996, specifically the M50B27 in our case. Overall, let's make a separate video about it. This is the M50B27 Turbo. That's tuned car. 450 horsepower so far. In general, let's make a video about it. But for now, let's move on to the stock tune. The stock tune is from BMW factory. The pinnacle of BMW engineering build on the E46. There it is. That's 330i M54. Let's open the hood. This is coupe. Everybody wants one. But it runs on gas. Recommended for purchase. A must-have. Everyone wants it. It's the top-tier engine, except for the M-series engines. in the E46, and it's relatively reliable. In general, it has 6 cylinders and a 3-liter capacity. It differs from the 2.8-liter and 2.5-liter engines only in crankshaft stroke. The piston size is 84 millimeters for both. It features an aluminum block with cast iron sleeves, similar to the M52TU. In other words, it's a robust design with no issues. Everything works fine. It has double VANOS system, identical to those in the M52TU. The engines are nearly identical in terms of internals. The only difference lies in the intake camshaft. The M54B30 valve timing is more aggressive. Another notable difference is the fully electronic throttle valve, no throttle cable. While the M52TU had a throttle cable, this one uses electronic throttle control for the DSC dynamic stability control, and the pedal is entirely electronic. To cover all the issues, we need a clear list. In the future, we'll create a separate video specifically about this engine, providing an overview. There, we'll have precise lists. Common issues that still occur, similar to the M52TU and M54 engines, include the possibility of a cracked valve cover. It's quite expensive, costing over $400. What else? Oil leaks from the oil filter housing gasket are common. The electronic throttle body is generally reliable but rarely fails. Intake boots can crack between the mass airflow sensor and the throttle body and cause air leaks. Lambda sensors may need replacement. As usual, the VANOS system might make noise and you'll need to consider replacing the repair VANOS kit or looking for another VANOS crankcase ventilation valve. One of the common issues on the M52TU on the M54 are crankcase ventilation valve and 3 hoses connected to it. 2 of them are plastic and tend to dry out. It's advisable to replace the crankcase ventilation system with hoses as a unit. They need replacement every 60 to 100,000 kilometers. This is highly recommended. If there is no smoke generator, it is impossible to find leaks, so you can simply replace them if there are any issues with idle speed and uneven operation. In short, among all engines, it most deserves the title of reliable in E46, since it provides a maximum power of 231 horsepower and 300 Newton meters, and it doesn't break down very often. It's also very reliable in terms of engine internals. As for VANOS system, it's so-so. In general, considering its power and the emotions it evokes in customers, its cost compared to other engines will seem quite small. I believe it's worth investing in it without hesitation. Essentially, it delivers its power in full. By the way, the owner of this car has invested more money here than any other customer in the past 6 months. Not in the engine though, mostly in the suspension. Well, partially of course in the engine as well. But that relates to valve cover gaskets, body kits, the thermostat, hoses, expansion tank, pump, and gaskets, and power steering reservoir. In other words, it's the peripherals that can fail. The owner drives long distances to Germany and needs reliability, so he decided to replace these components. However, if you drive mostly in the city, you can keep going until something breaks. Then come and replace it if you don't cover long distances. So in conclusion, I can say that it's highly recommended. A must-have for purchase. Personally, I would recommend the 2.8-liter or 3.0-liter engines, but the 2.8-liter ones are used in pre-facelift models. Pre-facelift models are somewhat less popular and more worn out. Overall, there are nuances. That's the story about the engines. Subscribe now to stay updated. We'll be releasing videos dedicated to engines, featuring a detailed list of repairs along with estimated costs. Don't miss out. And make sure to give us a follow on Instagram, where we post a variety of videos every day about life at our service center and the experiences of customer cars that visit us.